Welcome to Dancing Entrepreneur. I am Shiloh Sophia, and I'm here with Mary MacDonald, and we have a special guest today, Lynn Johnson, and we're just so delighted to be with all of you. So thank you for showing up, and we're exploring what's your next move? What's your next move, right? We are exploring one of us who is in a different place and space.
Thank you.
How are we going to show up during this time? What is it that is called for? Where are we on the path? What is truly needed and wanted? And how can we find encouragement and inspiration so that while we're doing what we're doing, we're excited and we feel motivated to continue on with our work? So I just want to really affirm that in the work of intentional creativity anyway, we truly, profoundly believe that the creative heart way of being about whatever you make is where the answers are. That your experience of your own creative soul is where the insight is, the information is there. And so when you approach with heart, the kind of mind that's connected is different than when you approach with mind first. And heart includes the beloveds, who you care about, what your unique work is in the world, how you choose to serve. And I'll just say this very morning, I had this experience where I felt I was about to send an email out to, close to 30,000 people. I wrote it 3 days ago. It's been edited and I just couldn't do it. And I asked myself, why? And it was about the current paradigm, about what's happening in the world. And I asked why, and I heard, your message is to encourage people to creativity and commit art. You're a leader in creativity. You don't need to be a leader of that paradigm that way. You don't have to do that part. You only have to do your part and remind everybody else to do theirs. And this flood of relief came in that what we're supporting you and our other classes to do is to be resilient to whatever situation we're in. More situations and challenges are coming. But if we are connected to our own soul voice, our own listening, and our own creativity, then we'll know what to do to the best of our ability. So I just wanted to say that as soon as I made that decision, which was hard for me because of course I want to create answers for everyone about what's happening and what I think could be happening and all of that. And I have done the research and do have some ideas, but as soon as I let go, this whole other idea that is for our next program, which is Red Thread Guide, it's opening in 7 days. I haven't been able to see what to do to change it based on where we are. The leading circles in person. It hasn't been designed for leading circles online, even though it's led online. As soon as I let go of doing something that wasn't mine, which is to lead directly to the current paradigm, this whole package of information flowed through my heart and mind and onto the sales page. So I did exactly in less than an hour, complete transformation of the entire page from this is my work and my work to call you into soul space. And we don't need to react to that. We need to stay inside of our own soul space and work from there. So the exact thing I've been saying to you happened for me today, and I rearranged everything in 1 hour because it was just waiting for me to listen. And that's what we're doing here. We're learning to listen to our heart and know that the instructions are right there. And sometimes we have to clear out stuff in order to hear what may really be there. So I want to share my testimony of heart first thinking and that I took action on it immediately and then organized my entire team around it and brought it all into being. And that's the kind of action that we can start to take when we stop doing what isn't ours and do what it is ours, our own piece of the red thread. So welcome. And I am excited to be with these two women. Hello, Stella Mac and Lynn.
Hello. Hi, Shiloh. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Lynn.
Sorry, I was unmuted. Hi, everybody. Lynn, it's so exciting to be here and with you. And Shiloh, yes, from my my work is called heart to heart coaching, right? The heart to heart path. Because that's what we're trying to do with people, right? Whatever it is that we are wanting to bring into the world and what they're listening to us. And when we come from that authentic place, and I love how you were talking about, because I've been coaching people about, we want to be so in control, so many of us, right? We just hold so tight on what we think we want. And then when we just, let it go, we allow another door to open.
Yep. And it's right there. That's the thing that's surprising. And that's what I'm clear on in the feminine psyche, is that these ideas are right here for us. And I'm thrilled to have Lynn here. And what we're going to be doing is Mary's going to lead an interview with Lynn, because she has such an incredible evolutionary feminine business model that serves girls and her community. And also, we've known each other for about 20 years. We met in Oakland, and I have witnessed her business, have invested in her business. She has taught with us. We have taught with her. Our communities are mingled. And I wanted you to look at a model that moves like nature moves, like seasons change, like women's bodies change. I wanted you to see that, and just to share her with you. After the mini interview, we'll have some Q&A with Lynn, and then we're going to go into a little bit of coaching with you and some breakout groups. So that is our plan for the day. So I'm handing it over.
Thanks. So Lynn, I would love for you just to open it up about what is the work in the world that you're doing right now.
The work in the world that I'm doing right now, I'm actually doing a lot of work. I'm working very hard. I am at the heart of my work, and my work is categorized in lots of different ways, but at the heart of my work is all about like helping people tell their story. That's what it comes down to. Primarily focused on women and girls. And so I own, I am the co-founder and owner of a business called Spotlight Girls. And I've been in business with my wife, Allison Kenny, for the past couple of decades. And the mission of Spotlight Girls is to educate and activate and inspire girls to take center stage. That's what we call it. And that business has also made way to more businesses. We also are doing work using theater, particularly a form called playback theater, to help folks kind of deal with issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in organizations and communities. So I'm doing that work as well. I'm also doing other kind of jobs and consulting related to that area. So so basically what it comes down to is helping people tell their stories for greater connection to themselves and each other. And I think I have a lot of background noise. There's a lot going on in my house.
Yeah, you do. Is there any way, do you have headphones or something?
Yeah.
And just for you all, that Lynn's wife, Allison, is coaching an entrepreneur in another part of their house. So it's all energetically beautiful.
I put a link also to Spotlight Girls over in the chat, and that's one of the companies that I got to invest in.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
We are.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad that helps. Thank you.
So Lynn, we were talking about the fact that, the way that we look at entrepreneurship is that it comes from our heart and our passion. So what was that for you?
My work from when I was very young is I was actually a theater kid. I did plays. I was an actor from a very young age, just like in my school plays in the community, and knew I wanted to, but it wasn't just doing my school plays. Like it was, I knew from a very young age that that was my experience in theater was what brought me life and brought me to life. And I moved around a lot as a kid. I was always the new kid in the community. And so, you know, when I got to come into a new place and try out for the play, it's like where I was able to just like discover myself and define myself. And I, you know, all of my friends were like that. And then I got older and started to teach theater myself to children. And I loved teaching so much, and I could see like what it was, what theater did for people, and whether or not they were ever going to become a professional actor. It was like there were very specific skills there that really helped people, you know, make bold and brave choices about their own lives. And so I was just, that was my obsession about that. I mean, I just was like, it worked for me. I know it works for other people. Um, and and I also knew that in another realm of life, you know, the kind of personal development world was a multi-billion-dollar business. And I was like, wait a second, like I am teaching theater and people are like changing their lives. Like this is a business. It's not just something that is that makes people feel good. So I knew I could put it together.
And so, can you talk about the evolution of going from there? That's, yes, this is, other people can be transformed through this, to your multiple businesses and the evolution
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, it's funny because my my 18-year-old niece actually just interviewed me and my wife the other day for an entrepreneur class that she was taking in her first year of college. And she asked me, you know, did you always know that you wanted to do this, or was it something that you just kind of accidentally fell into? And I feel like I thought I would have said that it was something that I fell into, because it was a situation where like like I said, I was teaching drama. I'd been teaching drama um, for many years. I think I'd been doing it for 10 years or so before I started to go, wait a second, I could probably run these programs better than the people who I've worked for. So what if I try it out, you know? But at the same time, then like not that long ago, I found a notebook that I had kept when I was in 8th grade. And in the notebook, I had written something that said, I'm going to be a great entrepreneur. And I was like, what? First of all, I didn't even know I knew what that word meant. Second of all, that was part of my path. So now I'm like, yes, I was very intentional, even though it wasn't consciously intentional on my part. So yeah, it just, that's where it started from. It started from, I was doing this thing and I just knew I could do, and there's like something in me that knew I could do it. And so we started off as one camp. Like we ran one summer camp, and it wasn't for girls at the time. I mean, it wasn't not for girls. This was for all kids of all genders. It was in San Francisco. Uh, we were incubated by another program, someone that had been running a camp, a nonprofit actually, that had been running a theater camp and wanted a new one. They had been working with teenagers and they wanted someone to build something for younger children. We're like, yeah, we could do that. So like that kind of incubation. At that point, we started calling ourselves Glitter and Raz, which is when we met Shiloh. And after kind of being connected to this other camp for a year or two, already I was like, nope, we can do this better than the people who are incubating us. We want to be independent. And it was around then when I actually reached out. Allison and I did some visioning with Shiloh. We went up to Healdsburg. I think I probably still remember that lunch. It was so good, even though it was like a million years ago. And got to like paint our vision of what our business would be.
So you
And
did the vision plan book.
we made a vision plan book, yeah. And like right after that, like I remember in my vision plan book, I was like, I don't want to be in this space. I want to be in our own space. And I was like picturing what the space would look like. And like right after that, we got a space in Oakland. We moved from San Francisco to Oakland, and we were in the basement of a church. And then it became about that space, and we like really built programming there. But then that one summer, so we've been doing that for like a year or two, and then one summer, only girls signed up for one of our camps. So we had kind of been building our camps, and we had all kinds of things going on, and we were experimenting like crazy. We're like, what can we do with this? What can we do with this? Now it all started, I want to say, it all started with like using theater and other art forms to teach the social emotional skills to kids that they need to like be bold and brave in their lives. Like, so it started that way, and it's still that way. But like we kind of have been flowing through the years where we kind of experiment with all the ways to do that. So anyway, one summer, 2008, only girls signed up. Then we had this whole other thing. We're like, wait, this is a thing. So we called that Go Girls, which is now still our brand, Go Girls Camp. And then we decided that that was two things, like at a heart level and a financial level. Go Girls was the most successful of all the programs we were doing. Go Girls just was popping. It was just like, it was the best curriculum. It was the most loved in the community. It was the most financially lucrative, everything. And so then we're like, okay, let's pivot again. And then we kind of, we called it pruning the roses. So we kind of pruned the roses so that Go Girls could grow. We actually got out of that space so that we could focus more on the programming than on running a space. We changed our name to Spotlight Girls. Which is a whole process. In that whole time, we became different. We were different business entities. You know, like we had started as a partnership, then we were an LLC, then we incorporated because we wanted to get investors. We changed our name. So then we became Spotlight Girls. And then we ran the program. And then last summer, 2019, we decided that we were done, that we didn't want to run the camp anymore, and that we wanted to support other people to run camps through licensing programs. Then that was another shift. And then we sold our local camp, which had gotten pretty big. We're based here in Oakland, California, and our camps in Oakland and Berkeley and kind of surrounding areas had gotten to about up to almost 300 or 400 girls a summer with various sessions and things. So we'd gotten pretty big. So we sold that to somebody last summer so we can focus on licensing. And now we had been coaching this year a woman to run her own camp. And then COVID-19 hit. And we're like, oh my God. So now we just sold this camp to someone who can't run camp because there's not really going to be camps this summer like we know them. And our whole thing is, it's arts, it's theater, it's in the room. You can't social distance theater. It's very hard to you can't, but it's very hard to social distance play between children. But all these things had happened this last month and 6 weeks with like school and things like that. And so now we've pivoted again and we are building a whole new product, which is Go Girls at Home. And we are building that in partnership with our licensees, actually. So our licensees who are like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, we'll help you. So, and that's like we're literally like, as we speak, that's happening. Like I'm getting the sales page and everything together for that to be announced on Friday.
Wow.
So that's the
amazing.
evolution.
I mean, so many times pivoting. And so at each of those times where you pivoted and went in a, you know, again, you're at the heart of what you wanted to create is, like you said, is still there.
Mm-hmm.
At the pivot times, was it more organic or was it a response to something else happening, like the COVID? Like, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like we were responsive. I'm a definitely responsive person and notice like what's going on around me, but there's also intention. I think that it started out knowing, being really clear, like really clear in our mission, really clear in our values. We have what we call the Go Girls Culture Code, which is at the heart. It's actually our curriculum, but it's also our organizational culture code, and it guides everything that we do. And like, and I've had a very strong desire from the beginning to like, I knew that I wanted to have this scale somehow. So I did make intentional choices, you know, like for example, in 2015, I started raising money because I wanted to bring on someone to run the local camp so that I knew, so that I could start thinking about what scale would look like. And I knew I couldn't, because it takes, I mean, as you can imagine, it takes a lot of energy, all your time and energy to like make sure that 300 girls in a summer, you know, are like connected and feel, so I couldn't do that and also like try to grow it. So that was like an intentional choice. And that didn't necessarily come from anything out in the world other than like, I was ready to do it. So I'd say a lot of our pivoting has been because I was ready to make a change. This COVID thing though was completely out of I could not have imagined it. But I mean, we did think about doing online stuff, especially for, you know, like the licensing program was going to be online, but I never expected that I would ever create an online educational program for the children. And people had suggested that to me before, and I was like, no, that would never work. It would never work, never work. And now it's like, you better make it work. So, yeah. So we're gonna make it work.
I wanted to mention something that has been inspiring to me since that first vision plan book, because the same thing had happened for me. I've told this before, and it was okay with you. It's not that personal. It's about a dollar amount, where in my business in my 30s, when I first realized that in order to keep my gallery open, that my basic expenses were running about $15,000 a month. I was shocked out of my mind. And I just couldn't believe it. And I was doing, you know, hand bookkeeping, and I did everything by hand, everything came in, everything that went out. And I just kept looking back, and I just couldn't believe it. And I just couldn't believe it. And then I was like, well, then if there's actual money made on top of that, like we're going to be over 6 figures, and we're going to be like this, and we're going to be like this. And it was just so shocking. And I felt, I don't know if it was shame, but there was something weird about that it would cost me that much to run my little gallery. Like, what? That was crazy. And I couldn't figure out like where that feeling was coming from. And it took this just real acknowledgement that this is what it takes. And I'm providing work for artists and for women and paying people. But it was hard for me coming from, not like extreme poverty, but like it was pretty rough, and, you know, welfare and all that stuff, and mama entrepreneur, super scrapper, just there was always enough, but the fridge was mostly empty, and we just kind of like, it was like day to day, but we were in abundance. But it still was like, to think, I felt ashamed or something of having that amount. And then I remember with Lynn and Allison, where there's that moment where you're looking at who is your beloved, right? So is their beloved the girls, the kids, or is it the moms and dads, or is it like the institutions that may be providing for those things? And you all realizing that similar amount was what it was going to take for you. And then you had this moment of looking at each other about like, can we really ask for that much from parents on behalf of children with everything they're already doing? And there was something about just getting what it would take to do it. That was a moment. That was like a moment of recognition, where then I think within a month you had actually got your own space. So you moved out of your own sort of, we can't afford to do this, and then going, well, actually we are.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, like I said, had been incubated by this nonprofit, and there's a nonprofit mentality, right? And I, you know, I worked most of my career in nonprofits before, you know, becoming an entrepreneur, and you know, feel like I'm still kind of recovering from that space. and so it's just kind of like, there's this assumption of the resources won't be there. You have to kind of beg and scrape, especially if it's like arts related or if it's education related. It's like no one's going to pay, and you know, that's true. And I mean, some places, but you know, one thing about business, you know, as you know about running your business, is that you're not running your business for everybody. You're running your business for the people who want what you have to offer. And so you put out, you know, so there are definitely people who are like, oh, I don't understand the value in this. And you're like, okay, well, great. Like, then you don't understand, like, then you're not my customer, like, you know. But then there are all these people who are like, oh my gosh, I completely understand the value in this. And that they're your customer. So you start to learn how to be okay with finding your market, right? Finding the people who will pay. And then you realize, oh, if there's one, there's probably two. And if there's two, there's definitely four. And if there's four, you know, so then you kind of just like move on from there. And in a business like this, true, also being able to recognize, it is tricky, right? Because I have customers. So I consider my customers the parents, because they're the ones paying the money. And then the children are the students or the campers or whatever. And sometimes it doesn't match. Like I have both. I've had it in both directions, right? Where I have mamas who will be like, oh my God, I love what you're doing, but my daughter will never want to do this. And then it's like, okay, then they can't, it's like, you can't be my customer because your child doesn't want to do it. And that's one way. And I've had kids who really, 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 really love it. And the parents will kind of pay for it, but not see the value. And that's like tricky too. And so it is an interesting marketing dynamic. But
then there's
yeah.
a couple things I wanted to ask you, because one of you start off with the not-for-profit, then that is one way that people can collaborate with the not-for-profit,
Yeah.
in order to get paid by the granting companies. And yes, there's all the other stuff around the not-for-profit. And the other thing about having different beloveds, really, right? Like you said, the parents, the granting people, the kids. And so when you are talking to them, you use different language, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And do you do that on your website as well?
Not really. My website is very much for parents. Like I said, my website's for the customers. And I keep, so we haven't yet really done anything because our students are so young. So like our girls, the campers start at about 6 years old. So I'm not selling to them. I'm selling to their moms or parents or whoever makes the choices. Often
what the investors
often a
do.
woman parent.
Sure.
Yeah, so the website's mostly for adults. At the same time, we also, like, as the girls get older, they start to make more choices, and then so we start to we start to have more program. Like, so we started young, and then we kind of got a little bit older. So now we're into more of like the tween age group, middle school, and so then it shifts, because all of the parents that are the ones who pay. Girls are like much more like making their own choices. I want to do this, and parents are like following their lead. So so then we start to speak. So then as our programs got older, then we actually started to speak more to the girls, but that age group, not 6-year-olds.
So I just want to ask everybody that if you have questions for Lynn, if you could go and put your hand up in the participants thing, so that when we're finished talking there, I'll be able to get to you.
Mary, do you want to tell them how to do that? Some people might not know.
Yeah, so when you go to the part down at the bottom, you have participants, and then when there's a list of them at the bottom, you can go on the right, it says raise your hand, and then it'll show in the screen so I can call on you.
Okay, great. There's a couple of questions when you're ready.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention about being an entrepreneur? I mean, it's almost like you're a natural entrepreneur, Lynn, right?
Clearly, since 8th grade, I mean, I guess. Yeah. No, sorry.
Well, and that was one of the things that you said, because I was thinking about a mentor of mine that said, because when I got out of my big ass job, I was like, I never want to do marketing. I never want to do fundraising. I never want to do any of these things I used to do. And he said to me, when you find the right container, because you've been doing these things. When you look back in your life, you've been doing these things all the time, being in conversation, right? And that happened, right? So that's something that if we all look back and say, like you looking back at 8 years old and saying, I want to be an entrepreneur. How many people do that? Probably about 0.1 of the population at 8 years old.
Well, I think that, I think there's a natural match between being an artist and being an entrepreneur. Because, this is why so many of us are attracted to Shiloh and her work and her programs, is because there's that part of us that like wants to sees like the empty space and is like, oh, I know how to fill that space with something. And loves that feeling, like gets kind of like addicted in a good way to that feeling of like, I'm going to make this thing happen that hasn't been created before. And so we're not necessarily all like interested in all the different business parts of it. Like, I love marketing and communication and sales. I love sales and marketing. But like, I don't really like finance that much, or like operations. But like other people are different than me and are like, I like really love to like have my hand on like the so all that stuff around the business doesn't come natural, I don't think, to most of us. But that shouldn't get in the way of like, if the entrepreneurial spirit, which is, I see the opportunity to create something where something wasn't before. If that spirit is in you, then you can go for that. And the other stuff you can learn, or you could like not learn, or you can outsource, or you can, so you don't have like, so I think sometimes people get afraid of like, oh, I'm not good at all the parts of business. So, and I say, well, that's okay. No one is.
Yeah.
Not a single
As
person.
Shiloh said earlier, right? It's like everything that you didn't have $1 million when you're starting this, or 100,000 or 50,000, right? It's, you did what you could. So I wanted to start taking some questions now. One of, Tonya, you asked, will you give us a couple of ideas on how you are doing Go Girls online? Is it live, video, small groups?
Yes, yes, and yes. It's a combination of all those things. We are doing a couple of, so normally in real life, a Go Girls camp is 2 weeks long. And in those 2 weeks, girls create and perform an original play at the end of the 2 weeks. And celebration's a big part of the culture. Like, we end with a big show and a party and all this kind of stuff. So we had to figure out how to, bring that spirit into this. So we decided that it's going to be sessions. So it's not going to be a rolling admission thing. We're going to start on one day and we're going to have 2 sessions. And it's going to be 5 weeks instead of 2, because our culture code is five points. So each week will be a theme of our culture code. And so each week there'll be a live beginning of the week kickoff and an end of the week celebration on Zoom. In between, there will be classes that will be asynchronous, video classes that girls can watch and do in their own time. And we have at camp in real life something called family groups, where girls come together in a more intimate situation. So we will also do that like once a week. And hopefully we'll have hundreds of girls sign up, and we'll need all kinds of group leaders to do that.
Well, we want to help share it. We want to help share it with the world.
Oh yeah, I will. On Friday, there will be a link.
Okay.
Purchase.
Okay.
So I will share it with you on Friday when it's done.
Or let me review the page before you go live, Lynn. You
Okay.
know me. I'm like,
Okay.
I'm like a page intuitive with big scissors. I wanted to say something about curriculum delivery. So if you have like a 4-point teaching or a 5-point teaching, right? So when you hone your offering that you're going to deliver as your curriculum, that goes on your sales page, right? These are the things we're going to do so that people can get a taste of that. And hopefully there's an image that goes with those features. But depending on the curriculum, in my experience, it's good if you have 5, do 7. And one of the reasons is so you can open without having to get too deep into the content. and meet everybody. It may not be ideal for Lynn, depending on what that's like, but for me, for us in Cosmic Cowgirls and Musea, one entire opening where everything is logistical and meeting energy and questions answered, then by the time you have the next session, all of that energy has already taken place. And then the last one is completing graduation, celebration, and reconnection. That allows each of the teachings to be totally standalone. And then the bracketing, the beginning, middle, and end sort of bracketing from an online design perspective. So I just thought I'd share that.
That's great. I think that's such a good idea. And the reason why we are matching 5 and 5 is because one, it's logistical. We're trying to get in 2 sessions before August, because I feel like the whole world will be different in August, and I have no idea what that's going to look like. So it's about timing, and it's also our culture code. The first point is say yes, and the last one is take center stage. And so saying yes is about establishing. So it's like that is our establishing week, and our last week is all about celebration, and like basically the graduation. So basically, we're doing the same thing, but like with 3 in the middle, and yeah.
Perfect. So
I
that's
love the culture code piece.
I have a lot to say about culture codes. Oh my God, I have so much to say about that for every kind of business, but especially ones like I'm assuming many of you have, which are educational or creative, like having that, like being really clear about what your learning framework is and like how to integrate that into all the different operations of your business just makes things so much like richer for everyone involved. So
And easy for you to make choices when you have that, right? Is that in alignment with our culture code?
Yes, exactly.
And so if people were going to design their own culture code, what would you say the first thing is?
Yes. Oh, I created a lesson about this once. What did I taught people this once. What did I say? The first thing I had people do was just like to be really clear about what their mission was. So we had our mission statement first. Like, so what is the kind of change that you're trying to make in the world? And then you start to ask yourself, all right, so, because to me, the culture code is like the how of the process. So your mission is your why, like why do you exist? Why do you do what you do? Then you have the what of what you do. Like, do you coach? Do you teach classes? Do you sell bagels? Like whatever you happen to do. Then the how is the culture code. So to me, the culture code answers the question, like what are the skills, what are the skills that girls need to be learning and practice in order for them to be able to take center stage. So so you start to think about, it's like the blueprint, like how do I get to my mission and how do I break that down? So that's like the fast version of it. So think about you start with your why.
Thanks.
That's a book, right? Start with why. Okay. I didn't make that up.
Uma, you need to take yourself off mute.
I have. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Lynn. This is really wonderful. And I want to acknowledge one of the things you said, the running my business for those who want what I have to offer, not for everyone. That was like this whole, yes, I love the way you stated it. That's what we're doing, is running it for those that are wanting it. And so it ties into my question, which actually is for any of the 3 or all of the 3 of you, because it ties into the sales page. It's getting the message out. What are we offering? And it goes back to this concept that here is the program and it's for all of these different people. But if I try to talk to all of these people, nobody hears me. And so, your web page, here's for the girls, here's for the parents. It changes as the girls are growing older. So if I think of what I'm working on right now, I am open to men and women. And so it makes it harder for me to say, this is for women of middle age who are going through this transition. And so it comes back to, do I make separate sales pages to address those women that need what I have to offer, and for those other people who will benefit in being in the same group. Does that make sense to my question?
Yeah, it totally does. Uh, um, I think that's one of the biggest things that I can also let Mary and Shiloh talk to, but one of the things that I find that the biggest, I don't want to call it mistake, but the biggest like kind of piece that we don't understand is that the more specific we are about who our customers are, and the more like almost like exclusive we are, the more inclusive we can be. And it's kind of like it's strangely, it feels a little bit counterintuitive, because I've worked with so many entrepreneurs where I'm like, well, who is your business for? Who's your product? Who's your service for? And they're like, well, it's for everybody. I'm like, no. I'm like, who is it for? Who is it for? It's for everybody. Oh, no. And that just, creating, like, I really recommend that you really bring it to life. Bring your customer, your ideal customer, to life. Like, I have this friend, Betsy, I'm not sure why her name is important, but like for years, she was my idea. Oh my gosh, my fire alarm's going off. Wow. But I'm okay. My house is not burning down. So, sorry. For years, I like focused on her. Whenever I made any decision, I was like, what would Betsy want? What would Betsy want? What would Betsy? Because she just fit my demographic. Like she had a daughter the right age. She was in the right community, like not the right community, but she was in my community. She made choices. Like I was able to really focus on talking to her. And so in selling to Betsy, I got all kinds of customers. Like, like I definitely had dads sign their girls up or whatever, but like it just makes your communication so much richer. And so I would not be, if I'm like, I can't emphasize that enough, to not be afraid to really, and create a name for her. She might be a real person, or he might be, or they might be a made up person. I would draw them, paint them, like find clip art of that person, put that person up, like whoever your ideal client is. Because then you can say like, what would Betsy do? What would she want? What would she need? How would she read this page? So.
And there's lots of Betsy's out there, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
And they will come when you, and that's where, for me, it's about language too, when it's on our website and stuff, that we're talking to Betsy, whoever our Betsy is.
When I was just getting started, my mom asked me the question, who do you wake up to work for? And I always remember looking for an image of that woman or that family. And I'll never forget, like, when I found it, and it was just so surprising to me that it was this family who was living in their car. And this photographer had documented this family over years. And I was to myself like, why is that who I wake up to work for? And it was this just sort of early moment of like realizing how my mom says we're just this side of trailer trash. I know that's unpolitically correct, but we weren't in a trailer, but we were like just this side, because my mom had some fashion sense. That's why. But we were right there on that edge of this other woman who I would describe as, the woman at the gas station, or the woman at the checkout counter, or the woman with the glitter on her fingernails. And I had such this compassion, because I knew in our family that we had some level of consciousness and choice she didn't know she had. So I was waking up to work for the woman who didn't know there was a choice or how to get to it. So in a way, it was like this woman who was semi-asleep, and then her children with her, of like, that they would know that there's another possibility. Because when you're that deep into a kind of, it's more than poverty, right? It's that culture that is so embedded, like you don't know that there's something else. You don't know there's a choice. And so that was my first woman to wake up for, that first family. I can still see it super clear. the photographer is Mary Ellen Mark. And I live with that book to say, like, I work for that woman. And then I remember when that changed, when I did advocacy work for domestic violence and sexual assault, and just really deep in that, just super face to face with that reality. And then realizing that I wanted to educate educators, and how that ended up changing who the beloved was, but that the beloved now was the educator who would go and then work with those women still. Mary and I had a client who was like the head of stalking for a whole state, right? And of protecting women from stalking. And I just told her one day, I felt so bad that I wasn't like helping her do that. She's like, no, if you all don't do what you're doing, I can't do that. You're my only place where I can feel like I get the courage to go back out and be in that presence, because without you, I don't know where to go for that. So sometimes the beloved over years changes in terms of where you think you can make the greatest impact. And then also you follow the muse, because my muse was like, yeah, I want to actually be in conversation with women educators.
And that's what Lynn was saying too, right? I mean, you had boys and girls, and then you went to just girls when you recognized that that's where it was going, right? And
exactly. And people ask us all the time over the years. I mean, some of you might be thinking like, do you ever do stuff for boys? My son could use this, which my son could have, and it's hard to say no. Like, I taught hundreds and hundreds of boys for decades, and like love teaching boys, and I'm like, I know that there's something out there for these boys. Like, my program is doing something else, so I've said no so many times to, are you creating a program for boys? So anyway, so you sometimes have to say no in order to say yes to what you need and what you need for yourself.
And when I did my first coaching, the language I used and the way I presented it, I attracted the people that I didn't want to work with. And frankly, I wasn't the right person for them to work with either, right? And so being really clear about what is that you want. And I always have people do a visualization where they're having tea with their Betsy, with their person, right? And asking her or them what it is that they want, what would shift and change their life. Yeah. And I wanted to take another question, Candy. You're unmuted.
Oh, okay. Thank you. This conversation is perfect because I created a business, yoga for women in larger bodies and differently able bodies. And I teach in the back of a crystal store, so it's very not a yoga studio. And my target population was women of color, because I knew that yoga and meditation can make a difference with a lot of the diseases in the community. And so it took about a year for it to kind of take off. And I use words like, bring your lusciousness. And my business is called Goddess Body Yoga. So I figure I kind of had it out there. I'm a large body yogi. I use myself in my advertisements. And everybody the majority of people that walk through my door are white, young, thin women. And I was hysterical because I'm like, what am I not doing right? What am I not getting? And I've had this conversation with different people, and they were telling me, just focus on what you're bringing to women. Stop trying to say it's just for one group. That group will eventually come, but you're not going to turn this group away because they're having a ball, they're having a good time. So it's interesting hearing what you guys are talking about, because I really am struggling as I'm writing and responding to Shiloh's questions. It's really making me drill down into, do I focus on who it is I feel I've been called to serve, or do I focus on what it is I've been called to do? Like I'm kind of I'm teeter-tottering there.
I love
Thanks
that.
a lot, Shiloh. You just made this so difficult for me.
Shiloh rocked your world. I think that that's so interesting, because, you know, first of all, like, you telling your story is going to, and you being true to who you are and the kind of yoga that you do is going to attract a whole lot of people. So there are a lot of like thin-bodied young white women who have a relationship with their body that we can't picture. Like, you know what I mean? Like they, women, you know, we have very complex relationships with our body, as you of all people will know, as a body worker and like, and a yogi. And so there's something in your message that is attracting them, you know, even though you're like, well, what's your issue, you know, or what do you got working on, right? So there's like something there, and like there might be a way that you could put, you know, you can push even further, like with your message. Like, where are you, is there a place where you're being, and I'm not saying because I wanted to get the thin-bodied white girls out of your class, I'm not saying that. I'm talking more about bringing more of your ideal customer in. There, like, if I for you, I would highly recommend creating, to doing, like, to really like painting, drawing, whatever, who your ideal person is, and really start to think about like, who is she, where does she hang out in real life, online, who are her friends, does she even know what yoga is? A lot of it is because, you know, a lot of thin-bodied white women, young white women, already know yoga. They're trying to find the newest, latest craze. But maybe your ideal customer, like I know I just started a yoga class for women of color primarily. As a student, I'm not a yoga teacher, because I'm like, you know, I'm actually kind of your ideal customer. So if you want to talk to me, you can feel free. But but there's like that, there's like a fear of like not wanting to be in those classes, you know? And so there's something I might bet, without looking at your website, there's something that you're not quite saying, about bringing people in who have been left out of yoga before.
You could also put images, right?
I use me. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
I'm a big spot not to miss it. But I even use like light. I did the crystal store purposely to get away from yoga, and I have like 100 candles almost lit in the room. It's all by candlelight, and I'm playing like Shaka Khan and Aretha Franklin, and I'm like, this is who is in my room with me,
yeah.
loving it up, you know. So it's
Well,
just
maybe what
really,
you
it's
could do is put
cool.
your sales page on the website and ask for comments to see what people respond to, right? And even send it to Lynn as well, since
I think that's a good idea, to ask other women of color what would need to be on here. I also feel like this is something we're exploring in our company right now, to do things that are for everybody and be clear about that, and then do very specific things that say women of color only, or big mamas only need apply, you know? So to just be very specific, this one's for everybody and this one just for these bodies. And then it takes time, right, to build up the specificity, but I want to remain an advocate for you to bring that particular woman in that meets your heart, because we'll go bazonkers if the client, even if they're paying us and we're just like, I don't even want to talk to that person anymore. So there's something about making sure that you get your need met for where you want that message to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
Okay, Brenda, I've unmuted you.
Thanks. I just wanted to add something to Gambi. Is just something that came to me is the candles and the Aretha Franklin might be exactly what the white girls are wanting, but it may not necessarily be what your women of color are wanting. So I think it just to confirm what Shiloh was saying. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to, Tanya, we asked your question. Did you have another one?
No.
No? Okay, thanks. And then we had two more. Let me go through here.
I just want to talk about Tanya for a minute and others who are body workers. I feel like we need to have a special dialogue of those who are working just with body of, you know, this time is not going to last forever, but to be able to bring something to your offering to address what's happening right now for your specific way you've been working. Like, I know you've been in the field for over 30 years. And I want to say to you and to others too, that the alternative thing that's going to happen over the phone or over the Zoom is not like in replacement of, or should even cost less than what's happening in person. It's almost, that's why I keep using the word translate, from the physical work to the digital work. It's like a translation. It's matter, it's particles becoming waves. And so it's like, I want to encourage you all to create a methodology around how what you've been doing translates to energy in the quantum. It's a new way of working. And I feel that your body of work, those of you who've been at it, you actually have this whole sort of energy packet curriculum that goes along with the physical stuff you've been doing. And it just needs to be fleshed out as the next evolution of the work, as opposed to a replacement for what you were doing, or a substitution, or even saying, well, until we're together. No, it's actually, there's a whole thing that you somatically have been divining that is appropriate to the context of how people are working now. And also that we know that time and space, it's so relative to how energy works. We already know this. And so your capacity to transmit the embodied somatic reality to the individual on the other side, it's totally right here. And I think can be just as powerful, but it will take some language and some shaping around how that can happen. So I'm thinking of what Tanya does, or I'm thinking, Gamby, can we do a video of you doing your thing for all of us, and we can get into it with you? Like, for some of you to try to translate, and it's like you're translating the body into, from particle to wave. We're moving across matter, and we're translating and emitting the energy that was gathered through all the training in the body. So it's new, but it's old, right?
And you can even do things like, for massage, what can I do myself, right? You can be teaching me ways to stay healthy at this time. Sue Bailey, you had your hand up. You have a question?
Yep. The lady that's being interviewed, the name's just escaped me, the Go Girl lady. I'm finding her unbelievably inspiring. And the reason for that is I've just been sketching out the how, why, where, who aspects of 6 characters, which are aspects of me that were my first beloveds, i.e. they're elements of me that I've shifted from an unawakened state to an awakened state. And I get really clear on what I'm doing, and then something can sway me. Like today, a local hotel was offering it to homeless people who had formerly been drug addicts. And my heart was so open that I found myself phoning the hotel manager to ask if I could bring what I've gathered so far to them. So if my heart gets opened, I then completely forget what my Betsy is, or what groove I'm in, and I completely belly flip in another direction and find myself being pulled another direction, and then forget to go back to my original direction.
Lynn or Shiloh, do you have any?
Yeah,
I mean, I totally relate to that too. I mean, things happen in the world that move you, and kind of, um, I can't tell you how many times I feel like I've been distracted, potentially by my core work or that kind of thing. But I don't know. I bet that it's not really that far off course from what you're doing. My bet is that um,
There's
there's just like a larger capacity, right,
an
of all the.
energy in it, an essence in it,
Yeah, that's right.
a sort of textural weave in it that
Yes.
makes me go, woof. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a beloved.
yeah.
But then I
Yeah.
can't relate it to what I've been doing hitherto.
Yeah.
But what you've been doing, Sue, is having these 5 or 6 beloveds that are aspects of you, right? It's like we want to teach what we wanted to know, right?
Yeah, I've actually written that I wish I knew. I've written those words. It's like, I wish there was one of me along, 60 years ago. It wouldn't take me 60 years to learn this stuff.
But it does. That's the thing. It's because that happens, because those things happen, and you're kind of going through and you're looking, and like your like life captures your captures your attention and your heart, and you're like, oh, what's that? And that's like all part of it. It's why it takes so long. It's okay. I think it's okay. that's my response. And it's like, it's really, I mean, I think that people who are like, I love how Shiloh talks about the feminine paradigms of business. And I think that there's it's a very strong masculine paradigm to be like, here's my goal and I'm going on one track and nothing's ever going, it's all about the bottom line, blah, 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 blah.
But you've always kept yourself in your girl camps. You've always been able to be really rooted in that and then not allow your sways to actually.
Oh, Sue, I've swayed so many times. I've had certain things happen in terms of like, yes, I have my general mission has been intact, but that's pretty broad. Right now, I have a whole other job that I have a marketing job that I'm doing because COVID hit, and people aren't signing up for the room programming. And while I'm shifting, I need to feed myself and my family. So, but I got a job, even though that job it's not focused on girls and women. It's with a women-owned company. It allows me to do things I'm really good at. I like the people. So it's not like me, I'm not teaching girls right now, but it feels good. I made a decision based on what I needed to do to feed myself within the realm of like you said, that there's a texture that's still me. And I feel really good about it. But so that's what you want to keep in mind, like you being distracted by wanting to give services and be really involved with this homeless community is inside of your scope of who you are. And that's going to teach you something, and you're going to bring whatever you learn back to your business, and you can allow that to happen. And that's just kind of like, another teacher of mine talks about how things happen, in spirals, and how circles become spirals. And like in spirals, we keep kind of coming back and visiting the same thing. And as long as you feel like that spiral is like, oh yeah, here I am again, looking at this part of my life. Okay, then you kind of bring that back. But yeah, I am not at all advocating for like, this is my goal and I'm never gonna. Oh my goodness.
Namaste.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have to. Is the class over? I have to jump off myself.
Yes.
Can you do one more question?
Yeah.
So I'm going to unmute MCC. Hi.
Hi, I'm Ruth.
Ruth. Hi, Ruth.
Yeah, that was a Zoom thing when they put my name that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As you were, I just happened to come in when Gambia was talking, and I am wondering what happens because worldwide we're looking at the divisions, but yet globally we're all having to come together. I'm an astrologer and a musician, and everything that I have been doing is about reaching out and helping people to understand themselves. And when we, as Gambi was talking, it occurred to me that maybe it's a bigger story than it's wonderful to offer to this particular subsection of our population, but maybe we all have a bigger story given the context and the backdrop of what's going on in our lives right now. And so I'm wondering, how do we look at this whole aspect of, yes, there's a bigger group and we offer our services to everybody, and then we say, okay, I want to specifically offer to these people, but maybe the bigger plan sometimes we think we need to give it to this group, but the real frequency and the real energy is to the beloveds over here.
Mm.
So what do you think about that, Lynn, in terms of how we see one thing, but maybe there's a bigger plan?
Well, there's definitely a bigger plan
Right.
beyond what we see. That's
Yes.
clear, right? And I'm glad you asked this question because I was thinking about this. When I say be really clear about who you're teaching to, I don't necessarily mean across, like, down strict demographic lines. Like, I only work with women, or I only work with Black women, or I only work with, you know, um, men of a certain age, or that kind of thing. It's more about speaking to the people who want you to be their teacher. So that can really, so yeah, sometimes that happens along, like, what we know as, like, kind of strict demographic lines, but sometimes it doesn't. Like, sometimes what you're thinking about is, who, like, in your case, I'm sorry, what did you say your name was?
Ruth.
This Ruth.
Ruth.
um Ruth, some, like, you know that that not everyone appreciates the science and the magic of astrology, right? So you don't need to be
Absolutely, I
wasting,
do know that very
yeah.
well.
So you know that you don't need to be wasting your time convincing people, right? As that's the thing that I wanted to get across, is that, like, our jobs as entrepreneurs aren't to convince people. We're not, like, running for public office, right? We're not trying to sway anyone's mind. We're trying to find people who are like, I am looking for the answers in the universe, and I am. There's something about you. There's something about your skills, Ruth, and something about the way you see the world and the way you communicate about that is going to connect to certain people. And those people might be Black or white or men or women or some other gender or whatever. And that's okay. But you, you're going to affect the bigger picture of the world when you find your students. And that's the most important thing. I'll just leave it at that. I hope
Thanks,
that was
Lynn.
helpful.
Thank you, Ruth, for the question. And Lynn, just as you leave us, is there, I mean, you've been saying so many brilliant things, but is there one thing that you would like to say to all the women entrepreneurs?
I just want to say, I'm feeling gratitude for you and what you do. I feel like, I do what I do because I believe in the bottom of my heart that the feminine energy, and that feminine energy can come through women, but it can come through other genders as well. The feminine energy is the answer to everything. It's the answer to everything that is harming and hurting us and hurting our planet. And so for those of us who are like, how do I take my gifts and create a feminine paradigm for business and for organizations to do that level of healing, you are needed, and I'm grateful for you and your work. And I just encourage you to keep doing it, even though it's going to feel really, really hard because it's completely countercultural. And it doesn't mean it's not right. It's just not what the world's used to. So keep studying and keep practicing and just keep going.
Thank you, Lynn, so much for being with us and inspiring us. It was totally wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much for asking me, Shiloh. I will say yes to you whenever I can, because you've enriched my life so much. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Much love to you and Allison.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick stretch break and come back and answer a few more questions and take a few more comments. So please stick around. We have more time together. And thank you, Stella Mac. That was just awesome.
Thank you. I love, me, love being in conversation with fabulous women.
So yeah, I think we'll maybe just 3-minute break and stretch and get some tea. All right, we'll be right back.
So it's 4:12, back at 4:15.
Depending on your time zone.
Yeah, sorry, 15. Yeah, past the hour.